couple of days ago we talked about the possibility of Ferrari joining Formula E, and if Ferrari need Formula E, which we all had our own opinions on. But there's another company that I really want to talk about, and obviously has been the forefront and sort of dominated the electric vehicle market for years, and that is Tesla. Now, obviously, Tesla is a luxury sort of brand. That's how they've sort of promoted themselves. They're not like a nitty gritty, race team, and they've got that sort of history. They're sort of a luxury electric vehicle. But they've been at the head of the game for ages now, and I think no other car manufacturer can say no into that. But now the likes of Mercedes, Porsche, BMW, Audi, all in Formula E and pushing the boundaries of electric vehicles. Are Tesla in the future, and I think, personally, I think this could happen, is that gap going to completely shrink, and maybe those teams in Formula E, will overtake Tesla? So therefore, yeah, Tesla might be the luxury brand, and, oh, great, you own a Tesla, but in terms of actually owning an electric vehicle, you might as well own a Mercedes, because you'll get an extra 200 miles of range compared to your Tesla.
It's really difficult to say, isn't it? Obviously, kind of Formula E is very much in its infancy in kind of relative terms, and I think that it takes a lot of time to kind of build the prestige and reputation of a championship. Obviously, Tesla has kind of gone about marketing their product and kind of building their reputation in a slightly different way away from motorsports. But it'll be interesting. Formula E is relatively a niche sport in comparison to many others, and I think it will largely depend on how these brands develop within Formula E and kind of how much attention they're putting into their kind of EV programs, because it's very easy to kind of go into Formula E and say, like, look how green we are, we're doing electric racing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it could just be a PR stunt, it could just be part of a large attempt in order to kind of promote your electric vehicles. You don't quite know the extent to what the motivation between joining Formula E is just yet, until you see that kind of commitment to electric vehicles over a long period of time. So it's difficult to say at this point, because I do think it's still early days.
Because for me, as soon as Formula E was created, the first question everyone asked is Tesla going to join? That was, and it still happens today. When is Tesla going to join Formula E? Because when you think electric vehicles, you think Tesla. And that's simply because, Ed, Tesla were the first, manufacturer, the first company, in a sense, to pursue the electric vehicle and to pursue it properly, like Tesla have done.
Yeah, they were really, I think, one of the first electric vehicle companies to sort of market electric cars properly, really, because we had there. You think back to historical flops, like from, like, say, Clive Sinclair in the 80s with the Sinclair C5 and the little chair, basically. It just looked really slow and kind of uncomfortable and not very practical for anything other than just a quick jaunt down the high street. But then Tesla really came along and changed the game. The thing is, like Will said and like you said, Jack, they don't really use racing as part of their marketing at all. And that means that there's not as much pull for them to go to Formula E, I don't think, because so much of their strategy is we're talking about to this year, they became the second most valuable manufacturer in the world, like just behind, I think in terms of valuation, they're only behind Toyota overall. And Toyota has existed since 1937, Tesla's existed since 2003. So they definitely don't need the money. well, obviously everyone needs money, especially at a time like this. So maybe I've spoke too soon there. But yeah, I definitely can see why Tesla might think, oh, Formula E need us more than we need Formula E.
It's interesting that you say that, because at this time we were talking about Ferrari needing Formula E, and I think for example, say Ferrari will need Formula E at some point, or will need to be in Formula E in some shape or form, whether it's through a sister company, just to make sure that the technology is feeding through and they're not falling behind their rivals. And I just feel, I know Tesla really hasn't pitched itself as a rival to Mercedes or as a rival to whatever sort of manufacturer, but I feel like at some point, it might not be now, but in 5, 6, 10 years' time, Mercedes, the Porsche electric vehicles, the Audi electric vehicles, they'll be hitting the market and they're becoming more and more popular. And especially as, especially in the UK and in other countries, when we get closer and closer to 2040, when, you're not allowed to produce any petrol vehicles. So in that time, Tesla itself could lose all that market share, could lose everything if their cars no longer have the technology or can keep up with the manufacturers that are in Formula E, or the companies that are in Formula E, who are then producing electric vehicles in the future that probably will be better than Tesla cars.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on how much of their development in terms of Formula E is being kind of fed back onto their road operation. And it's difficult to know exactly kind of how much that is. I guess it also depends on the way that other series decide to position themselves. Are other championships going to go down a more kind of hybrid route? Are they going to go down more the electric route? That's something we still don't know. And as you say, Formula E is still in its infancy. So I think you're right in saying that this impact is definitely going to be felt 5-10 years down the line rather than right now. But it's an interesting point you raised about kind of Porsche, Mercedes. These are luxury brands in the kind of non-electric market, and they definitely have the standing and the reputation to compete with Tesla if they get their electric vehicles right. So I'm sure that Tesla view them as a threat. It's just about whether going to Formula E makes that less of a threat or not.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I personally, I'd love to see Tesla fighting and actually putting their name up against and saying, look, we are the electric vehicle daddy in a sense. Like, you ain't going to beat us. We're going to stay on top. And, had that competitive spirit. I'm not saying Tesla need to make their own team. I'm not. We've got American teams. Obviously, one's tapped up with BMW, but you've got Dragon. And, just becoming an OEM partner with Dragon, that might be enough. You're not actually being a Formula E team, you're just providing a powertrain. And if Dragons all of a sudden shoot up to the top because they've got Tesla powering them, people are going to go, oh yeah, Tesla are the brand to buy. In terms of an electric car, like Tesla is still the brand. That's, looking at Mercedes, when they've been winning the Formula 1 World Championship, Ed, their car sales are through the roof because Mercedes are winning, therefore Mercedes produce the best cars, therefore I should buy a Mercedes. That's what a lot of people base what they buy their cars or who is a good car based on how they're performing sometimes out on a racetrack.
I think you have to remember, in the case of Dragon particularly, they tied up previously with a startup EV company, obviously nowhere near as successful as Tesla have been, but Faraday Future. And unfortunately, Faraday Future fell into huge financial difficulties. And Tesla, they've been through the rocky periods. They weren't profitable until about last year. So, yeah, they definitely, Tesla, they were pretty attractive already, but they're a lot more attractive to, say, a team like Dragon that could really use the support. And in terms of, but as we said before, a team like Dragon really value their independence. So you could see it going, you can see a lot of reasons for it, you could see a lot of reasons against it. Yeah,
I just think there will be a time where obviously Tesla might need to join, and if they don't join, they might see the consequences from that. They might never join Formula E and nothing ever happens for them. They continue to progress electric vehicles and maybe always be one step ahead. We don't know, but I think it'd be great to just see their name in some shape or form linked with Formula E in the future. Might not be now, but definitely in the future, especially if they do start losing out. If Mercedes and Porsche and Audi, whatever, close that gap to Tesla, then I think Tesla might think, okay, we might need to get involved somewhere or some shape or form. And which they potentially were doing with the Tesla Model S, but I don't think it was linked to Tesla as much in the Electric GT Championship, which hasn't really come to fruition.